That's all right. Hey, don't worry about it.
Jeff goes into a shame spiral. We have to buoy his ego. We are back.
Wait, hold on. You're laughing at you.
Welcome to Mount Rushmore. I'm Jeff, and I'm joined as always by my good friends Michael.
Hello.
And Richard.
Howdy.
Richard and Michael are always at each other's throats, always arguing, always debating the top 4 of any given topic, the things that best represent that topic. This week, the topic chosen by Richard is awful/annoying characters in otherwise good movies. Richard, why'd you choose it?
I'm sure I was watching some movie and a character that I just drove me nuts came up, and I just thought, this is something we need to get into.
Yeah.
So so basically, it's the Michael, as you know, wrestling. It's the go away heat, the X-Pac Heat.
All right, yeah.
It's like when the crowd's booing somebody, like in wrestling, they're booing someone, and they're not booing them because they're a bad guy. They're booing them because they just legitimately don't want to see them anymore. So these are characters who have that kind of elicit that sort of a reaction.
I ran with that in a similar way where I just interpreted it like characters that are either purposefully annoying or just happen to be annoying as either a character trait in an otherwise, really fantastic movie. And maybe it made the movie more fantastic, or maybe it just kind of took you out of it a little bit. We'll see where it goes, I guess.
It's rock and roll.
Yeah.
Okay, Richard, you chose it. Michael, you start.
My first one is the character of Lina Lamont in the movie Singin' in the Rain.
Oh, yeah, a classic that we all know.
Yeah.
Played by Gene Hagen. And this was the character that was like the idol star of, along with Don Lockwood, the Gene Kelly character.
Yeah.
And, they were great in the silent movies together, and they could overact, and she was this great beauty, and she had, she was the studio's big starlet.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, the jazz singer became popular, and talkies suddenly became a thing.
Damn you, Al Jolson.
What was annoying about her?
Well, she had 2 aspects. One, as a human being, she was kind of a bad, needy, very kind of mean-spirited person. But the annoying quality was definitely her portrayed voice, which she had a very New Jersey, really heavy New York accent that just couldn't get over on the big screen. And, I think both her and Don were terrible actors at first, because when they were first recording their voices and acting, it was very melodramatic.
Yeah.
And but then when she spoke in this voice that was very up here, and she would say things like, "I can't stand him," and everyone hated her.
Yeah.
Right.
The funny thing about her was that she was actually a great singer.
Yeah.
And she actually dubbed the
Debbie Reynolds
singing for a couple of the songs.
Yeah.
And then even though her character was supposed to have dubbed.
Be dubbed in
by. So it was Gene Hagen dubbing Debbie Reynolds dubbing Gene Hagen.
So Gene Hagen's just singing.
Yeah.
And Debbie Reynolds is pretending to be singing for Gene Hagen.
Yeah.
It's like a Victoria thing, except with just music.
But she had a nice dual quality. You could almost forgive the annoying voice.
Yeah.
It's okay, maybe that's how she grew up, and she can't change the way she speaks, but then she had just another kind of more vicious, vindictive quality.
Yeah.
That kind of, the two of those together really kind of, it both stuck in the knife and then turned it a little bit.
So this isn't a character, unlike we might hear from Richard, that seems to float like a turd in the otherwise good ensemble or story. She very much propels the story because she's part of the problem and they're part of the solution.
Yeah, eventually she becomes kind of the antagonist to the Kathy Selden character, where she's put up as the roadblock, and the studio execs want to make sure that she's appeased, and ultimately she gets her comeuppance at the end of the movie.
I'm kind of fascinated by teams, and there are some, in the case of Singin' in the Rain. Debbie Reynolds was actually pretty new to the business, but Donald O'Connor and Gene Kelly are some of the most phenomenally talented people you're ever going to see on the screen in the history of film.
Yeah.
Right.
And this Gene Hagen character, she really just kind of commits the sin of being not a very good performer in era of film where you didn't really have to be a good performer at all. So
Yeah.
and she could
Lina Lamont.
The character, yeah.
yeah, sorry.
Not Gene Hagen.
Yeah, Lina Lamont. And she did poorly the one thing you never had to do, which was talk or sing on camera.
Things tended not to go well for a lot of the talky females of the day who had young, Brooklyn accents.
Yeah.
And Mary Prevost and stuff like that, want to be getting eaten by her dog and then written about by Nick Lowe. Nobody wants that.
Which was there was one of those cowboys, it was Tom Mix or somebody who actually had a New Jersey accent.
Was it?
So he had to pretty much give up the Western business when they started recording audio.
I'm a cowboy.
Have you seen Hail Caesar?
Oh yeah.
No.
Where the what's that? The Aiden Emmerich,
Yeah.
the new Han
Yeah,
Solo.
yeah.
He plays a character who had to do that same thing. He had a Western accent. Or he was some good old boy from Oklahoma or Texas, and then they're going to reimagine him into a leading man role.
Right. Oh yeah.
Where he was very sophisticated, and he had to try to get these lines out, and everyone was just mangled. And
Oh yeah.
and the Ray Fiennes director was just very could you just it can't, and I can imagine Lina Lamont, they had to do the same thing with her. It took them to diction classes, and she couldn't understand. She thought she sounded great.
Yeah.
But then you're watching her, at home, and you're just like, oh my God, it's so piercing and so just excruciating. And you can imagine I think also Don, the Gene Kelly character, Don Lockwood, was frustrated working with her just in general. I think the studio was trying to push them as a couple, and she was all in on it, and he couldn't stand her.
Yeah, he was trying to reinvent the form, and she was barely keeping up with the old school way of doing things. So
that was one, both Singin' in the Rain and White Christmas both had a scene that I find annoying in both of those. I know it's not annoying scenes, but when they kind of insert the modern jazz number, in White Christmas, they do that modern jazz number right in the middle of their big Christmas show.
Yeah.
And I think they did the same thing in Singin' in the Rain too, where he's like, well, we should do this modern thing.
Yeah.
It's just
Moses. I suppose I tell us it's so dated, just like when they tried to rap in a movie from 15 years ago when white people tried to rap. Here they are trying to adopt an urban culture that they fails through their interpretation of it. Richard.
Okay, so my first one, I went with going a slightly different direction, characters that kind of take you out of the movie. But also one that's kind of annoying, I think, is Fabienne from Pulp Fiction. Butch's no, her.
Oh, her. Oh, sorry.
Butch's girlfriend or wife or whatever she is.
Oh, okay.
And just that whole conversation is just
yes, some inappropriate references to Mongoloidism, is that
and
what
getting
it is?
punched in the getting punched in her pot belly. I mean, it's an awkward scene.
Yeah,
and I think there's just something about her as a character that is just very annoying. And then, of course, she's the person who screws up and doesn't get the watch.
Yeah,
and winds up setting the whole chain of events in place. It winds up, Benny Vega getting killed and Marcellus getting, butt raped. So. There's just something about that character.
They just set you off.
And maybe, there's triggered me.
Triggered.
Yeah, I don't know.
Richard hates the French, hates cute French girls, hates cute pot bellies.
I remember watching and thinking, oh, is this who Tarantino was sleeping with when he did the movie?
Yeah, there's definitely a part. There definitely felt like that.
Yeah. Eric Stoltz's girlfriend was a little annoying too, as I recall. Didn't he have an annoying girlfriend in there?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
Wife. Or his wife. It was I'm totally blanking on this, but
the one with all the piercings, right? The one with all the shit in her face.
Was it Arquette?
Yeah, it was Patricia Arquette, wasn't it? Or not? Or Rosanna Arquette? Or Rosanna Arquette? Thank you.
It's Arquette.
It's Anne Arquette.
What? So is it? It's not just her as a performance. The dialogue that they share.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like it's from some weird other movie, and it's just all this other cool shit is happening, and you want to get back to all these other characters that are incredible and action that's happening. And then there's this 5-minute long scene where she's talking about wanting a pot belly, which may or may not be I guess is that supposed to be she wants to get pregnant?
No.
Is that what that means?
I think she wants to have the appearance of the potbelly without actually being pregnant. But it's a strange moment of calm in the movie. They don't have many of them.
Right.
There's only a couple where maybe when he's high and driving, when it's kind of calm and dreamy, and then that's the only other really calm moment before things kind of go crazy.
Right. And I think also she's probably one of the few characters who just seems really naive and dumb in the movie in a way that seems really out of character.
Genre.
Out of character for Tarantino characters.
I do.
Because everyone else in the movie is like, even the bad guys or the dumb characters are smart.
Yeah, they all seem torn from Pulp novels, but she might have been the kind of the gun moll or the dim-witted broad, the dame.
It's like she's flown in from another movie.
Yeah,
And
she's also in a scene with the guy who's an archetype himself, the
true.
prize fighter.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah, so that seems weird. Okay, cool. Well, I love how different those choices definitely are. So, but it's clear that the misogyny runs thick in this podcast so far. We're just annoyed by women in general.
Well, I'll keep it going because I have Willie Scott from Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom.
Also on my list.
Oh, good.
Wow.
She is such a stark contrast to Miriam in the second movie.
Right.
Miriam is kind of a more strong-willed and, kind of pulled herself up by her own bootstraps sort of character who took over after her dad passed away and kind of raised herself a little bit and, was involved with Indy when he was an older man and kind of, she's very worldly. And then all of a sudden they introduced the Kate Capshaw as Willie Scott, who from the moment you meet her is just complaining about everything. She's complaining about the holes that he's poked in her dress and burning her fingertips and dropping Indy's gun because it's too hot. I think that's the first instance of like anti-Chekhov's gun.
Right.
where it doesn't come back later in the movie.
Back. Yeah.
She's complaining about the pittance of food that's offered to her by the Indian tribe and the way the elephant smells. And she's complaining about the food that she does get at the Maharaja's palace. And she's complaining about Indy not paying attention to her, then complaining about it. Like she is such a constant force of, oh my God, couldn't she have just she didn't really add much to, I mean, she did save their life, I guess.
Yeah.
But she does seem kind of,
she can scream.
on the continuum of...
She was a good... She was a good
screamer.
Yeah.
On the continuum, though, she's not a female Nazi, which is...
That's true.
You're right. Check mark. Ding.
Not a female Nazi, not a Soviet.
Yeah, not a Soviet.
Who's the kid? Mutt?
Yeah. She does seem like something out of screwball comedy, a character out of screwball comedy versus an adventure, which Miriam Ravenswood would be, right? Or a war picture, which is...
Was it... I felt like it was an attempt to do like one of the road picture, like lead female
like a
characters.
Dorothy Lamour.
Like a Dorothy Lamour type thing, yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's what they were going for with her. But it's kind of, to me, it's like they already had the sidekick character there in Short Round, who we can argue whether or not possibly belongs on this list.
No, Short Round was great. I would argue against that.
I would too. I know there were some people when I was researching this that felt
really?
otherwise.
Now, that Temple of Doom is Spielberg's divorce movie, right? So do you think his wife at the time, was it Amy Irving?
Yeah.
Amy Irving was just complaining about everything all the time, so he just wrote every time she bitched into the screenplay.
Well, and then he ended up marrying her.
No. You're thinking Kate Capshaw.
No, I know, but I mean, Spielberg eventually married Kate Capshaw.
Yeah.
So wonder if he wrote her as his ex-wife, and then
Exorcised.
and then when it was like, all right, well, I'll just marry this one.
Yeah.
And then they served primate parfait at the wedding.
So that brings us halfway to the subject of this week, annoying characters, otherwise pretty good movies. And we don't want to annoy you by asking you this all the time, but I'm going to ask you to download, rate, and review past and present episodes on iTunes. Go on our Facebook page and have a chat with us, dialogue with us. Let us know what you think of the podcast. Like the Facebook page and let us give us your suggestions for future episodes. We'd really appreciate it if you follow us out on the Twitter, Mount Rushmore Podcast, and Instagram, same thing. We are back in black. Hit the sack. Been gone so long, it's good to be back. Richard, what's your third?
All right, so my third one is Mickey Rooney.
in
Yes.
every movie ever.
Mr. Yunioshi,
Oh God.
Breakfast at Tiffany's.
So this is where the awful character comes in. I gotcha.
Yeah,
I gotcha.
Yeah, this is
I'm feeling your vibe here.
feeling the vibe on this
what
one.
you were thinking about. Okay.
Yeah, this. I think we all, if you've seen this movie, we know who you know who we are talking about. This is Mickey Rooney in yellow face, in buck teeth, and big glasses.
Yeah.
Playing the most stereotypical Japanese
Yeah.
person
Like
possible.
Jerry Lewis would be, dude, please,
Take it down a little bit. The movie's fantastic otherwise, and the character didn't need to be in there. Character didn't need to be Japanese. If you needed that character, you could have just had Mickey Rooney playing a white guy, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like there was nothing inherently Japanese about what he needed to be to advance the plot or anything like that.
So do you know that was the character in the book? It was a book first, right?
Yeah, it was a novella.
Was he Japanese in the book?
Yeah, he was Japanese in there.
Okay.
He was a Japanese photographer.
Okay.
So I suppose, but again, it's the movies. You could make him not be. I don't think there's anything about him having to be Japanese.
And there were more subtle characterizations. Although Brando in Tea House of the August Moon played a very broad caricature, Asian caricature. So like,
if Brando's doing it,
if Brando's
Mickey's doing it.
Mickey Rooney can do it, baby.
I do think that movie could have suffered from other unfortunate stereotypes of a gay hustler.
Well, there's that too, yeah.
But so I maybe
Or Buddy Upson.
Yeah,
Just
so
as
maybe
a stereotype.
as a stereotype.
Somehow
So
Buddy Upson.
maybe it's getting credit for not going there on some other cases.
I
But
suppose.
yes,
I mean, it's
stinks up the movie.
Oh, and it's something that, I know there are there've been protests when this movie has when they've wanted to show it like at, movies at the park night. There've been Asian American groups that protested saying, why are you showing this movie with this horrible racist character?
You know what? In counter to Mickey Rooney's horrible dated portrayal, you have Audrey Hepburn, who is timeless in every way,
Right.
in her classic beauty and her style, and she is the muse of college girls all over the world.
Right.
And
she's the equivalent. The poster of her from Breakfast at Tiffany's is the equivalent of like the Scarface poster.
Or
Yeah.
the Star Wars,
Or an
the
adorable
Star
girl.
Wars poster or something like that,
yeah,
right?
it's every college girl's like dream of being this classy pearl wearing cigarette.
Nobody dreams of
Older
being
thing.
George Papard.
No, or the cat.
Or
Yeah,
and certainly nobody dreams of Mr. Go right, Ray, we'll go now.
It's awful.
I mean, behind the curtain a little bit, we did a couple of pilot episodes tests, and one of them was worst accents.
Oh yeah.
And I think this is one we talked about.
Oh, is
It wasn't even like it's like we weren't even sure if this was an accent or just a grease fire to the point where we didn't even know where to place it.
I just loved like George Papard and Audrey Hepburn standing to the side going, is he going to do that in the movie? As his
This is a gag, right? This is like a gag reel thing, and he's not really going to do because and at some point Blake Edwards didn't come in and say, Mickey, baby,
Yeah.
let's you're here.
Yeah.
You need to take it. You're at Charlie Chan level.
Yeah.
We need you to take it down just a little bit.
Listen, we won World War II already. We don't need to rub it in.
Yeah, we don't.
Right, don't be a sore winner.
Yeah.
Okay, Michael.
So my choice is the character of Ruby Rhod, the Chris Tucker character from The Fifth Element.
Also on my list.
Oh my gosh.
Well, we
So
know.
for this episode that we thought, we had completely different takes on it.
Yeah,
That's
2 out of
pretty
the 4.
amazing.
Yeah.
That's pretty amazing.
that's right. Well, he plays a. I guess he's a DJ,
Radio host.
He's a It's good that in the year 2300 or 2400 that radio is still around.
Right.
Although I guess if he did have a podcast, it would probably be like the Ruby Rodcast.
You were sitting on that one for a while, weren't you?
Well, I wrote it down.
Okay.
But he plays like just the most amazing, insane, all over the place, loudmouth, obnoxious. I mean, he's Chris Tucker, but stuffed into like a Jean-Paul Gaultier, leopard print outfit.
And his hair is basically a Lego block.
I read that originally the character was written for Prince, but Prince saw the designs for the character, and Prince said, it's too effeminate. If it's too effeminate for Prince.
He wore chaps on an album cover, I think. Yeah.
With no butts. Just buttless chaps.
But I mean, even though he was wildly annoying. I just loved his portrayal of just it was like nothing I've ever seen in a movie.
See, versus for me, where I think for the first couple of 10 minutes he's in the movie, it's great. And then he's in there for the rest of the movie, and he's shrieking every time anything happens. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Doing the Chris Tucker thing. And
come on, my man. Come on, Dallas. Come on, my man.
And it just is like, it just completely takes you out of whatever else is happening in the movie.
Yeah.
In a movie where everything is like over the top and ridiculous, somehow it manages to overwhelm everything else that's happening whenever you hear him. Like a bomb is going off and all you hear him is screaming. You can't even hear the bomb.
When him in a leopard print skin tight outfit is the craziest thing with his voice. When there is a giant blue alien opera singer,
right,
with tentacles coming out of her head, and that's kind of like, oh yeah, well,
secondary.
Forget about her.
Yeah, and I can't focus on that because Chris Tucker's screaming.
I think it's interesting that the last two have been comic relief in films with challenging but kind of unformed dramatic journeys for these characters.
Sure.
In Breakfast at Tiffany's, they're kind of two stray cats who are kind of finding each other, and they're trying to find out what this other element is in that movie. Like I find that interesting. Here is a director. In each case, they've chosen to put this over-the-top character who's going to blow the lid off the dramatic. It's kind of letting the air out of these heavy dramatic scenes, but they really go too far, and time does not treat them very well.
Right. It's a thin line for the comic relief character between being a break from the rest of the movie versus like overwhelming the movie. And I think in both of those cases, one, I think just for very obvious reasons that it's a horrible racist caricature. But then this one, for me, it's just, it's too much.
It's turned up to 12.
It's too much Chris Tucker, man.
Yeah.
The amount of Chris Tucker I need in my life,
he had more than that. He had a really good run from like 94 to like 97.
He could be on the Rushmore of guys who just play the same damn character.
Yeah.
Over and over again.
Yeah, that's a good...
Whether it was him, or whether it was this, or Jackie Brown, or the Rush Hour movies.
Friday.
It's all basically, he's just playing Chris Tucker.
That would be a good Rushmore of people that play the same character over and over. And you don't expect anything less.
Yeah, we discussed that with McConaughey a couple of weeks ago, I think.
McConaughey, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, y'all, all right, here's your AIDS medicine. Okay, Michael.
Well, I guess the last one, also an RR. Instead of Ruby Rhod, it's Roger Rabbit.
Oh, wow.
From Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Oh, wow. This is an interesting choice.
Okay.
And he's the lead character of the movie, or like the co-lead with Bob Hoskins. And he's a cartoon, and he's played as a cartoon, but he has like this weird kind of schizophrenic personality. He's, insane, but he's also really sweet. He's kind of frantic and manic and constantly worried, but he's a really good guy and a really good friend and wants to please everybody. He's like this character that like the normals or whatever, normal people see, and they're just like, I can't believe he's married to that girl.
Yeah.
He's this, and you're like annoyed by that aspect.
Right.
But he kind of walks this fine line of being really annoying with his, I can't do the impression of his voice, and then at the same time, he's just like, he's the hero, and he's the one that's been betrayed, and he's the one that's hurt by this. And,
yeah.
As the title says, he's been framed. And he's a character that you kind of both empathize with, but then also hate at the same time. You're like, I wouldn't mind if a giant piano smashed him on the top of that. I can understand why, the judge character wants
Judge
to
Doom,
kill him.
yeah.
Why he wants to just destroy him. Because like,
he's
really effing annoying.
If all cartoon characters were like him,
Yeah.
I think I could get into some toon genocide.
I liked how Roger, who was made whole for the book. I think there was a book before it, and then
Truman Capote wrote it.
I believe it was. It was a novella. Yeah. I believe Judge Doom was was Japanese man. Christopher Lloyd played him with buck teeth. And
I mean, the Christopher Lloyd character at the end was pretty effing annoying too.
yeah.
When once he pulls off his spoiler alert, once he pulls off his face and he's a crazy tune
Right.
underneath that. But I liked Roger as a very likable yet very annoying character. He's almost like what they wanted to do with Jar Jar Binks.
Yeah.
In the first Star Wars in the Phantom Menace.
Mm-hmm.
But he wasn't likable in any way.
No.
Like they had all the slapstick goofball stuff.
Right.
And then it was just like, you're stupid.
Yeah, would have included him in my list, but we specifically said good to great movies.
That's right.
That's not Phantom Menace, no matter what happens, even if Jar Jar's not in there.
Well, those are all our choices because we doubled down on a few of them. So
That is it.
Did you want to comment on anything else? I know we kind of picked Willie and Ruby were both choices that you guys matched on.
No, I don't think we need to talk about anything else.
Okay.
I mean, there's a lot of stuff we need to talk about, guys.
Guys,
and
we
me
need
need
to
to talk to you about a few things with the show, but we'll do that off air.
Well, I think you guys did a great job of coming to a lot of agreement on something where you didn't even agree on the actual topic, but it was certainly a tour de awful through the cinema, and I really respect how far you guys went through your kind of movie history in different genres. Michael really all over the place, going from Singin' in the Rain, kind of a film musical, to sci-fi, to animation, then the serial type reboot of Temple of Doom. And Richard, I love how emotional you got about these characters, even to the point where, like with Fabienne from Pulp Fiction, I feel like she got under your skin to the point where you couldn't even put your finger on it. Like,
Yeah, I can't quite tell you. By the way, I think it's Fabienne.
Fabienne
Fabienne would be the old 50s teen idol.
That's right.
Who I think might have done a better job in the movie.
That would be great if what's his name? Bruce Willis and Fabienne
Bruce Willis and
sharing
Fabienne.
a hotel room together.
I would have watched that.
That would have been interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so since you guys split a couple, it looks like it might be even this week, you guys. I hate to put you into another tie. But Michael, I really loved how you went back into film history to pull Lina Lamont and to reveal that sometimes the person and their character are actually in contradiction with each other. So that was really cool. And Mr. Yunioshi was one of probably the most compelling choice of all of these. I had the biggest visceral response to Mr. Yunioshi because I do remember seeing that in a film class and just thinking, what the F?
Yeah.
This guy's floating like a turd in the punch bowl. So that's 1-1 for each of you. And then you split the other two, Willie Scott and Ruby Rhod. So that makes us tied for this episode, at least. This episode, of course, about awful and annoying characters. Otherwise, good films. This has been the Mount Rushmore Podcast. I'm Jeff.
I'm Richard.
I'm Michael. I still hear that echo.
Yeah, I hear the echo. I actually think it got worse.
It came back.
I think it's in the... I'll stop and we'll listen.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I think I'll stop, collaborate, and
And then listen.